No.
I would take them out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Me too.
I would absolutely take
Me
them out.
too.
It's just not worth the risk for. I'm
Right.
sure there's somebody that can make.
Yeah, they made it so it's customized, so it's expensive.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, they're just welded. And
Yeah, but it's okay.
they're not. It's not really.
It's not really expensive.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Alright. Whenever I do this,
Very delicate. Yeah.
and very hard to get.
Mm. Oh, nice.
wow.
So now you don't have
Again?
to worry.
Is this
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Another thing to notice, and I did this on purpose. So I made these for Solwood.
Mm-hmm.
See how it's written? It's stamped. I think it says IGT1, IGT1. If you put those
Oh, yes.
stamps
Yeah.
together, then the orientation of these connectors will be correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Because if you don't, then these might not come off in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
But on both IGTs, they are stamped such that if you put that together, then everything fits just right.
Yeah.
But there might actually be if this is the one we took. No batteries. Good. If for some reason this gets stuck, these two screw holes don't have a hole associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get a longer screw and screw one of these in, and it'll push out the bottom
Yeah.
to get it to come up. Now, as you can see, these are the electronics.
Mm-hmm.
If the batteries are in, there's a lot of power here. So don't put it down somewhere where it can roll into a wrench or roll into this or roll into anything metal, because you will cause a short.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So just be very careful when you're doing this. One of the batteries goes on the back, and the other one just goes down in the bottom. So, nothing. That looks pretty good. And then, so what I would do here is, should be fine, but for completeness, there's two O-rings here. Just take- Because this is a pressure housing, you just want to be very careful with the O-rings and very careful with those surfaces. And you don't need a lot. You need a very, very thin film. To grease the O-rings. Like there's hardly anything on my fingers, and we just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very thin film. The grease does not provide the seal. The grease keeps the O-ring from binding when you're stuffing it in.
Mm-hmm.
That's that one. Put this one back on. Done. I'll put this other battery on. Reconnect.
So it's green to green and
Yep. Green to green,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Red to
this is the communications,
yeah, communication.
and this is the battery.
All right.
Let me just drop this on the bottom. Stuff everything back in. So what I did, unintentionally, but I'm kind of glad I did it, is this is having trouble going in.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because the battery is actually too close down here. I need to slide the battery up a little bit. So I want the battery up there a little bit. Much better. Thank you. Good.
So the marker is right there. That's right. Yeah.
Around in a circle because that might cause it to slide slightly. So I'll just go across like this. Doesn't need to be super, super tight.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, the water pressure will keep that on. So now we can put this back on. You want the most basic silicone spray you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to get in foreign ports.
Yeah, it's hard to get. I look.
If it's got any sort of white film on it,
Yeah.
you don't want it.
Okay. Because it's reduced the conductivity, right?
Well, it's just all this other garbage that
Oh,
is
right.
going to, it's just going to gum up yours. Because
Oh.
the thermocouple has 6 tiny little pins.
Mm-hmm.
When you put these on, it is most important to do it. So there's a little flat spot there, there's a little flat spot here. Don't just put it on and turn it. You'll put it on a little bit, push down.
Mm.
Put it on, push down. Because if you start turning it, these pins are very delicate. So just push, turn, and then you can tighten it. Many people will just put this on and start turning, and especially with these 2 pins, one of the pins will break very easily. They're
Okay.
very delicate. They're a terrible design, but it's the only thing that's small enough to allow us to do what we need to do. So this is why it's important to have those stamped letters
Mm-hmm.
lined up, because that way these all go in the right direction. That's seated now, so we're good. And then there's a notch.
So this one is connected to the motor, right?
Yep. And the other one is connected to the thermocouple.
OK。所以你拍一下，这个是这一个是到 motor，
motor 好，
就是比较靠近那个这个 marker 的地方，这边它有刻字。
marker 是上面那个 IGT01那个，好，
它是连到 motor，
好，
然后这一根是到 thermocouple。
好。
Oh, okay.
And then
try.
I will do this one.
Oh, okay.
So that you can see how it's done.
Yeah.
And then the second one,
You can try.
you can try.
Yeah.
And then we'll clean them and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Upside down and a toilet sits on it and bolts to it. But this fits very nicely. Very, very secure. Okay. So, off the back. This. I love their IGTs. They're so brand new and shiny. So this is the viscosity jet.
Yeah.
It's just a very small hole. The small side goes towards the sampler. Sample chamber. The big open side goes towards the accumulation chamber.
Yes.
So this is how it goes in, just like that.
就是这个 OK， 随便拍一下。
有。
这个 smaller one
等一下，
就是
我把
小的是连接到 sample 的 chamber，
好，
然后这个比较大的是到那个 accumulator chamber。
好 OK，
那它，所以这不能放错边。现在是要放错。
Theoretically, all the pistons are exactly the same size. However, we don't interchange them.
Yeah.
So this one has IGT 101 on the back,
Mm-hmm.
which is IGT 1, and this one has a letter A,
A. Accumulate.
accumulator. The other one has an S for sample.
Mhm.
When we are at sea, we very commonly drape string
Mm-hmm.
so that we can put it in and hold this
Okay.
so that it's not sort of lying on the table or easily, you know, I think I have this something. So we kind of like that.
Yeah.
Any si-
Would like to use the Teflon, and
yeah, then you don't need the
we
grease.
don't need the grease.
All right, so we're gonna.
I'm not sure if this is already the Teflon O-ring.
They are not.
No, no.
The back side here are Buna and just regular O-rings.
Okay.
The front side are Calrez
Okay.
or Viton.
Viton. Yeah.
It's this first part here that I'm about to do is only done at the beginning of the cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Once this back part is done, you don't have to take it apart again
Mm.
for the rest of the cruise until you're done and you clean it. So because it's going to be there for the majority of the cruise,
Mm-hmm.
we typically are pretty liberal. We put a lot of grease
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to go up and down 50 times or 100 times. If you do 50 deployments of this IGT, it's going to move more than 100 times.
Yeah.
So we don't scrimp on the grease. On the sampler side, we put as little grease as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. And I'm going to grease the coupling as well. Again, the grease is only to provide lubrication for the O-ring. It is not for sealing. So you only need a thin film of grease. Because this gets cleaned in between. Well, part of this gets cleaned in between every use. The other part doesn't. We will see why later. When you put this in, you want to make sure that we don't just push it all the way to the bottom. We sort of grease the cylinder as we go. really difficult if this is closed. If that were closed, I would not be able to push the piston in. Or I would be able to push it in a little ways, but not very far. Okay. Some of this does take a little bit of strength, but not too much. So I'll push down and then slide it back up. A little further. It's also extremely important that you never try to put a piston in without the T-handle on. Because if the T-handle is on, it goes in the right direction. If you try to push the piston in just with your hand and that threaded part is at the bottom, it's very hard to get that piston back out.
Yes.
One more time. There. Heard it bottom out.
Yes.
So now we'll bring it back up here. And we want it kind of fairly high up. Now, milky water. That's a bit too much. When you thread this on, thread it slowly. Air will come out the threads, and you want it to come out the threads slowly. And you should, hopefully, I don't think you see it here, but you see it another time. See, water starts coming out the top. And you, if you look carefully, at least over here, maybe you can see water start to come out
Yeah.
around the threads. So you want all the air, as much air out as you can get out. Use the C-wrench. Once you have metal to metal contact, it's tight. You don't need to go any further. So it stopped, and that's all I need to do. Now, putting this coupling on, pushing it down, we likely moved the piston a little bit down because we have pressure to push it through the viscosity jet. So what we do is, I'm going to go over there. We just hook it up to our nitrogen. Coming out. So we pushed the piston quite a bit. That would have gotten you a smaller sample had you not done this step. And if for some reason at the end charging it now is a good idea. However, just like when we put this coupling on and this piston moved a little bit, when we put this coupling on here, this piston will move a little bit,
Okay.
and that's okay. But if we pre-charged it now, the piston couldn't move and we might not be able to thread this on tight. It'll feel tight because we're gonna have pressure because of the water, but water is incompressible, so we're not gonna get a good seal if we pre-charge it now. So even though it seems convenient, oh, I've already put pressure in, why don't I pre-charge it now? Pre-charge it later. Piston is a little bit different. This one we're going to use, this is where you'll put the snorkel on. Snorkel on. Most important wrench, 13/16. Because that fits this nut perfectly. This does not need to be super tight. There is no pressure differential here. You just want it tight enough that it doesn't easily rotate. Normally you would have the T-handle on here. So I just sit that like that. Yeah, good idea. Might get wet. We'll just say ours do, but I believe all of yours do have that indentation at the bottom because that should match what the bottom of the sample side chamber looks like. There's a divot in the indentation in the bottom to allow the water to drain out. So you'll do the same thing. You'll grease. Now for this, key point is you want to make sure that the piston hits water before the O-rings come in contact with the sides of the chamber. Because if not, you'll trap air in there. And because we filled it kind of high, that worked. This is kind of a messy job. We have to account for the piston now. So for the first little bit of pushing it down, put that. So the nut isn't exactly where. The reason we do this is to ensure that we have no air.
That's right.
On the other side. So we just push all that water out, just use it to fill the backside. We use the seawater just so we don't have to use more water. Now the piston is pushed all the way down. There is a little bit of water in this tube here.
Yes.
Up to the valve, up to that. And it's ready to go. All the air is out.
Okay.
So now we can take this off. This is sort of this elaborate setup is because some of our snorkels have side holes. So
Oh yeah.
we have the
Okay.
tip welded with titanium, and we drill holes in the side. Because very commonly when the ROV pilot is rooting around,
That's right.
Yeah.
it is very easy to get a plug of something in there which plugs your snorkel.
Yeah.
So we have a lot. Many of ours are like this. We use these all the time.
Okay.
So don't be afraid to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also an option. And if we put this tubing over this, the water has no way to get out.
Mhm.
So this is just a this is just a little bit larger, so it sits in
Okay.
there. So that's why it's like that.
So we can just use a normal like.
You can just use a normal tube. None of yours are side hole. We went 20 years, 15 years just using these, and they work great.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can take this out.
So just make sure the chamber is without any air.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is just to, I mean, you could push that all out on the floor if you wanted to,
Yeah.
but then you just have to dump more seawater in the back. This just sort of rinses it. This never touches the sample,
Yeah.
so it's fine.
Okay.
Typically when you're at sea, seawater is not
Mhm.
a problem to find. The more water you put in here,
Mm.
the further the piston goes back.
Yeah.
So put as little water as possible.
Okay.
Air for this air to go, except out the threads
Mm.
or into the accumulator chamber. So you want to thread this on slowly,
Slowly.
and you should hear air. Maybe. Yeah, you can kind of hear it a little bit. And you want it before that O-ring seals. You want to absolutely make sure you see water coming out those threads. if you don't,
And we have to put more water.
you have to put more water. And I do
Yeah.
see water. There's
Yes.
water there, so we are good.
Mm.
It means we've gotten all the air out, even though we didn't hear it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
C-wrench.
T-wrench, again, once you have metal to metal contact,
Yeah.
you can't go any tighter, and there is absolutely no reason to. Doesn't matter. You
On the, the water depth.
Yes, absolutely.
So like 110.
So once that's at pressure,
Yeah.
close this.
Close. And close it.
A better regulator would have a shut off here, so you don't have to turn off the tank each time.
Okay.
There's gonna be a lot of pressure in here, so just be careful of this.
Recharge.
Pre-charged. Always put the nut back in. These valves, as they age, sometimes leak a little bit of gas out. So it's very important. You don't have to kill it.
At the end
Be very careful with threading anything into these. They're only made of Delrin. They will very easily strip. Okay. I don't want to bend one of yours if I don't have to. Yet. Because they're brand new still. So we will just destroy one of mine. These need to be, I need to repair these. So we will. There's a guide pin. Goes right on. Always use the locking collar. And I'm gonna go get some tie wrap. You want it to kind of go a little further than that? No, I will
It's
do
just
it.
for protection.
It's just for protection, exactly. Those are sort of sacrificial. They're not really strong, but they actually do quite a good job in protecting. Very delicate. I try to bury this because it's a snag point. Yep. So we do. We use a ton of these on the cruise. It's okay to put it on the nut, but do not put it on the locking collar. And then we'll do this. And then we use a hose clamp, which is this. So we don't put it right at the end. We put it a little bit back. Clip this. Clip this. So that's the front part. Now we need to put on the communications back here.
Okay.
I will do that up here. because it's easier to get at. So the back one will have two purposes. And you'll see what they are in a moment. Always use silicone. Same exact thing as the O-ring grease. It does not provide a sealing. It just provides lubrication for connecting. So what I'm going to do is just loosen this a little bit. Just turn it so it's coming out more that way. Very careful again. Very, very easy to strip these. Very, very easy. It's held in place by friction, so you don't have to do it super, super tight. Same thing. On, push, on, something like that.
调整这个的目的是要让这个线能够这样顺过去。可以看一下。
Okay. Like I said, this one serves a dual purpose. And the dual purpose is a little bit bigger. I just can't. There we go. I just couldn't get a good grip on it.
OK。
Put that like that, and then it acts
所以你看一下它怎么卷。
有。
as a strain relief. Invariably, the pilot is going to drop one of these. It's going to happen.
I can imagine that.
It's going to happen. Other than closing the valve, which we still need to do, this sampler is ready to dive.
OK。
We've got the communications cable, it's protected, strain relief, thermocouple, connected in 3 points. All of these are connected. Should be good.